Okay, good evening everybody. Welcome to the special Partners in Torah edition of the 7 ways to make your Pesach Seder absolutely awesome. So I want to begin by just giving a perspective on this incredible mitzvah of the Seder. What is the mitzvah of Pesach? So we know there's a mitzvah to eat matzah. And we're going to talk about that soon. But more important than the mitzvah of eating matzah is the mitzvah
of telling your children.
We're having technical difficulties here.
The mitzvah of telling your children.
Is the mitzvah to talk about our redemption from Egypt. That is the mitzvah of Pesach, is to talk about the redemption of Egypt. Now, to many people, Pesach is a burdensome holiday. For many people, they feel like they're back in slavery, getting ready for Pesach, cleaning the houses, doing everything they're doing for Pesach sometimes is very, very burdensome. But what we're going to try to do tonight is feel like free people on Pesach. We're going to try to feel like we're people who are just redeemed. We're people who are just freed from slavery. People who were in exile and now are free people. So it's very interesting to me. This holiday is the only holiday that has 8 days. It has 8 days. Usually a holiday, you have Sukkot, is the second longest holiday, and it is 6 days. And then you have a new holiday called Shemini Atzeret and Simchat Torah.
What about Hanukkah?
Well, Hanukkah is a rabbinic holiday, that is true. But here you have a special holiday which the Torah commands us with an extra day. And the question is, why is this holiday so special that we have this extra day? So our sages tell us that God said, I love this joyous festival. I love this holiday. I want you to stay one more day. I want you to stay one more day. It's like children come to visit. They come from college. You say, stay one more day. One more day before you go back to school. The truth is that when we have Pesach, we're going to visit the Almighty, so to speak. We're spending special time with God. And we'll talk about this. The reason why I'm starting with the end of the holiday. What is the commandment of the holiday of Pesach? It's to eat good food. It's to enjoy special time with your family. We know we start every festive celebration with Kiddush, with wine. On Pesach, it's such a special time of joy. We have 4 cups of wine.
Can you drink any kosher wine? Or
Any kosher wine. And your favorite kosher wine. Why? Because wine is something you drink when you're happy. Wine is something you drink when it's a special occasion. You pull out your nice wine. God wants to spend a special time with us, and therefore, He says, drink not only 1 cup of wine, 4 cups of wine. What are the 4 cups of wine for? Our sages tell us, because there are 4 expressions of redemption. God took us out, and He saved us, and He redeemed us, and He took us. Each one of these expressions are brought to life through each one of these cups of wine. That's the 4 cups of wine that we have. Every time we have a different special occasion, we drink to it on the Seder night. Now, it's a time to feel closer to Hashem. It's a time that we need to take ourselves out of our own exile, our own slavery. Now, what we're going to talk about tonight, I discussed in several other classes, they were not online, but in several other classes we talked about what is this slavery that we're trying to feel free from. It's not only, our sages tell us, that there are certain spiritual components that have to do with time. And the calendar, the Jewish calendar, is cyclical. It comes back again. So just like salvation, it says, came in Nisan, the month that we're in right now, the Jewish people were redeemed from Egypt, from slavery, so too the future redemption of the Jewish people, the coming of Messiah, will also come during the month of Nisan. We know that there are other terrible tragedies that happen to the Jewish people in the month of Av. Every year, it's a time of mourning. It originates from the crying of the Jewish people in the desert when they got the reports from the spies. Moses sent in 12 spies into the land of Israel. They came back with a negative report. The Jewish people cried. God said, "You cried in vain. I'll give you what to cry about." And forever, throughout history, throughout the Jewish people's history, that time of the 9th of Av, the days before and after it, are a time of challenge, a time of tragedy. We have many pogroms. You can look throughout Jewish history and you'll see very challenging times befell the Jewish people. It's in the air. It's a time of these extra precautions. The time of happiness, the festival of joy in Sukkot, returns every year with that holiday. The time of redemption from slavery is always on Passover. Every year, as we return to Passover, we have an ability to release ourselves from our bondage, from our slavery. So Alex, you're looking at me like slavery. I'm not a slave.
No, but I'm just listening to you.
What?
I'm just listening and paying attention.
So, what type of slavery are we talking about? So we're slaves in many different ways. We're slaves to our jobs. We're slaves to our materialism. We're slaves to our cars, to our homes, to our careers, to our hobbies. We have many different slaveries. What's the definition of slavery? Slavery, by definition, means that you don't have the ability to choose to do what you want to do. What's the ultimate service that we should have in our lifetime? The service that Moses had. After Moses dies, he has a 2-word eulogy. What was Moses? A servant of Hashem. In Hebrew, it's Eved Hashem. 2 words. The servant of God. That's it, he was. Everything he did was for Hashem. Any type of slavery that we have that interferes with our service to Hashem is a slavery. Is a true, authentic slavery. So whether that's, I call it, there are many different religions in the world. My favorite terminology for modern day disturbing religion is Harley Davidson. There's the Harley Davidson religion. And the people who know Harley Davidson live Harley Davidson. It's not only their motorcycles, it's their bumper stickers, it's their tattoos, it's their t-shirts, it's their belts, it's their leather jacket. Everything is Harley Davidson. It's a religion. That's also a slavery. There are people who have slavery to their luxuries, to their lavish vacations. It's also a slavery. Now, there's nothing wrong with having it, but it has to be in measure, that we shouldn't be sold to it. Our technology, think of our devices. Devices could be used for very good causes. They could be used for tremendously good causes. But they can also be slavery. So on Pesach, we're not only talking about a historic slavery, we're talking about a present slavery that we need to release ourselves from. And that we're asking to be redeemed from. We're asking to be taken out from. I think it's another point during our Seder to identify what is my slavery. It doesn't have to be public. It doesn't have to be a whole proclamation that you make to your participants at your Seder. But at least for ourselves, we shouldn't think that, now we're free. We need to break ourselves free. Just like the Jewish people needed to break through the sea to reach a place where they can be in the desert. They have no occupation. There were no doctors needed in the desert. There were no people, no farmers needed. They're just living through the miracle of the hands of Hashem. They had the manna every day. They had whatever they needed. They had the clouds protecting them, the clouds giving them light, the clouds protecting them from natural challenges, from human challenges, from wars. All of these so that they can serve Hashem. We need to break out of our own shell, out of our own slavery today to be able to serve Hashem as well, without any interference, without anything blocking.
But Rabbi, whenever spies came back, one of the reasons why they lied is because they wanted to go on with that type of life in the desert where everything was given to them. They could be in this spiritual connection with Hashem. But God's desire was for Jews to go into Israel and work the land and build the cities.
Two of them didn't.
Right, so we can get to it after. We're just on live, and it's going to be hard. Okay, we'll get to it. Okay, we'll get to it. We'll talk about it. All right. So, at the Seder, I'm going to skip around a little bit, but I want to read to you a phrase that we say towards the beginning of the Haggadah. We say, just after we say the Manishtana, we ask the questions. So I want to talk about one quick thing before we say this. Prepare a little bit. Before you go to the Seder, look at your Haggadah. Study it a little bit. See a pattern. Ask some questions yourself. See things that are not in sequence, perhaps. Things that seemingly don't belong. The mitzvah of Pesach is asking questions. And those around your table, make them feel comfortable. Make them feel excited to ask questions. Reward them for their questions. Find a way to make it interactive. It's not just a tale from the past. It's not Memorial Day for the Jewish people. It's a living day of our own redemption. So it says, right after we ask the questions, which, by the way, are not really answered so well. We don't even relate to the questions that were asked. We have questions, and we talk about something totally different. Oh, by the way, Avadim Hayinu, we were slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt. Just by the way. And we get into the whole story of the redemption. At the end of the first paragraph that we read, it says like this. V'chol ha'marbeh lisaper b'tziat Mitzrayim harei ze meshubach. The more you talk about the details of our redemption from Egypt, the more praiseworthy you are. And the real question we have, what do you mean more praiseworthy you are? The more you talk about it. Well, think of it like this. You have a great miracle that happens to you. God forbid someone's in a car accident. It's very easy to walk away from it and say, thank God I'm healthy, nothing happened, and just continue on with your life. Or you can choose to have a new aspect, a new perspective towards happiness, where you can go into every single detail of that miracle, where you can feel the love of the Almighty in every single step of the way. This happened, and this happened, and this happened. You see the miracle of Esther. We just read about it a month ago. We have Mordechai, we have Esther, and the way the Megillah is constructed, it's in a way where we can see the hidden hand of Hashem. By all of these seeming coincidences, and we know there's no coincidence in Judaism, it seems like it's all a coincidence. But by the way Mordechai and Esther document the Megillah, we see that there's no coincidence. We see that the hand of Hashem was in every single part of it. Well, guess what? The more you talk about the Jewish people and our redemption from Egypt, the more you'll see the miracles, miracles in miracles, and miracles and miracles and miracles that happen. It's almost like we say later on in the Haggadah, we say that how many plagues were there? 10 plagues. Our sages tell us, guess what? It wasn't exactly 10 plagues. 10 plagues that were really 50 plagues. 50 plagues that were really 100 plagues. 100 plagues that were really 200 plagues. 250 plagues. You know, just like, think about it. What do you think happened in an Egyptian household when, you know, Mr. Egyptian, let's call him El-Sisi, just as a random name, okay?
Not that random.
Not that random, right? Right, so he comes home and his wife says, hey, how was your day today? Guess what I baked for you today? I baked your favorite cake. And she brings out the cake, and they cut the cake, and he's about to take a bite, and he sees something moving inside his cake. What do you think happens? He's like, hey, what is this? Is it a joke? She's like, no, my dear, what's the matter? He's like, look, there's a frog in there. You put a frog in my cake? So she says it must be something, you know, from the flour. She brings out, you know, the chicken, and she brings out the rice. I don't know what they eat in Egypt, but right, she brings out all of the food. And guess what? There's frogs all over the place. He starts beating her. What's wrong with you? This is what you feed me? She goes to the kids. The kids come home. The kids are complaining. Who do you think is getting the brunt of it? The kids are going to get it. The kids go out to the field. They're playing with their friends in the park. They're going to beat their friends. Their mother just beat them. And you know what happens? The whole city's in an uproar. So what started with the plague of frogs led to many, many, many more problems. And what happens with lice, and what happens with darkness, what happens with every single one of these plagues, it wasn't just one plague. It was dozens and dozens of plagues that they were impacted with. Started with blood, and then it progressed. Think of the challenge that goes on in a household, and add the 10 plagues to it. It's not a pleasant experience. So what we see from this is that the more details we talk about the splitting of the sea. We talk about how we went down to Egypt. It wasn't a coincidence that we went down to Egypt. Now, why do we need to be slaves as Jewish people? Sages tell us, if you are going to be the leaders of the world, if you're going to be the example for all the nations, you need to understand what slavery is. You need to be able to understand what it means to be at the bottom of the barrel. 210 years of slavery. Now you'll know how to treat slaves. Now you'll know how to have compassion, how to have mercy, how to be kind, how to be generous, how to have sympathy. You think about the Israelis being attacked from Syria, and who's the biggest medical relief to the Syrian children is from Israel. Look, these are our enemies. Yeah, well, we know what it means. We know what it means to have compassion, to care for others. Who's the first to offer assistance to the Iranians after an earthquake? The Israelis. Okay, it's declined. But we know what it means to need help, and no one's there. We turn it around, and we say we're going to change the way we act. We're going to be kinder to other people. So it's important for us to experience slavery so that we don't do that to other people. We know what other people are experiencing. So later on we see a very interesting thing. One of the favorite songs that people sing at the Seder is Dayenu. One of my favorite teachings from my grandfather of blessed memory I remember sitting by him at the Seder. The first time he said this, I thought he was absolutely nuts. How can you say such a thing? So if you look at the dayenu means it would be enough. So if God had only taken us out of Egypt, but didn't give them all of the challenges to the Egyptians, it'd be enough. It makes sense. If God gave them the challenges but didn't destroy their idols, that would be enough. That's true. If God dealt their idols but didn't kill their firstborn, that would be enough. Makes sense. If God dealt their firstborns but didn't give us their money, that would be enough. Also makes sense. Let's skip a few. If God took us to Mount Sinai but didn't give us the Torah, that would be enough. 1 second. If God took us to Mount Sinai but didn't give us the Torah, dayenu would be enough? I don't know about you, but why would you go to Mount Sinai if not to get the Torah? It's like, you know what? I take my children to the ice cream store and I tell them, I took you to the ice cream store, no ice cream, that should be enough. Right? And what would you say? What's the purpose of going to the ice cream store and not get the ice cream? Why go to Mount Sinai if not to receive the Torah? Does anyone here ever go on vacation? Went on vacation? Yeah? What did you get on vacation? You got a souvenir. Right? You got a t-shirt, you got a mug, you got a cap. You got something special. Why? Memory. I want to remember this experience. And every time I'm going to drink my coffee from that mug, it's going to say Paris. And I remember all of those experiences. It's almost like the engagement ring is to a woman who gets engaged. What does that engagement ring mean? It means a whole relationship. It doesn't mean a ring. It's not just because it's a beautiful ring. It's because it represents a relationship. It represents a commitment. What was the purpose of going to Mount Sinai?
To receive Torah.
The purpose was not to receive the Torah. The purpose of going to Mount Sinai was to build a relationship with God. The greatest revelation ever to humanity of God, of godliness, was at Mount Sinai. God himself speaks to us to the point where it says that you could see the sound. Now I'm talking, can you see the sound? Can't see the sound. How can you see the sound? How can you see a sound? Well, when it's that vivid, when it's that real, you can see it. You know it. You feel it. You live it. Sages tell us, the Midrash says, that the first 2 commandments of the 10 commandments that we heard and we experienced at Mount Sinai, they were spoken directly by the Almighty. And each one of those utterances, the Jewish people's soul departed their body. And the Jewish people needed to be resuscitated. And the second commandment, the same thing. And the Jewish people said, enough, one more time, we're not going to be able to last. Dayenu. So they asked for Moses to relay the rest. And the rest, if you look at it, it's in third person. Moses is relaying the 3rd commandment all the way through the 10th commandment from Hashem, from the Almighty. The Jewish people had such an incredible experience, such a revelation of godliness, that you know what they said? We need a souvenir from Mount Sinai. We need something so that 3,300 years later, when we're standing in Houston, Texas, celebrating our holidays, living our daily lives as Jews, how are we going to remember that experience we had at Mount Sinai? God didn't give us one souvenir. God gave us 613 souvenirs. Every mitzvah is, in the words of what my grandfather used, in the words of his Rabbi, is like a thermos. What is a thermos? A thermos preserves the heat or cold of the beverage inside, of the item inside. So imagine you have a thermos. So today they'll advertise it can keep it at boiling temperature for 7 days. Wow. You put it in the water 7 days, it stays piping hot. Imagine if you can preserve the heat of the contents inside the thermos for 3,000 years. Well, that would be a very precious thermos right there. God says, I'm going to give you 613 thermoses that can preserve the revelation, the clarity, the love, the friendship, the amazing experience that the Jewish people had at Mount Sinai. When you touch the mezuzah, when you see the mezuzah, when you remember the mezuzah at your front door and the doors within your home, every single time it has the power and the ability to completely bring you back to Mount Sinai, to that clarity, to that revelation. The mitzvah of tzitzit, the mitzvah, you think of all of these mitzvahs, what are they for? Zecher Yitziat Mitzrayim. Remember your redemption from Egypt. Remember the revelation. Bring it back to real life. That's the mitzvahs we have. Every mitzvah we have has the potential, has the ability to bring us back 3,300 years with the force, the thermos, with piping hot revelation, where it's so crystal clear the relationship we have with God. There never was prior to that, and there never will be after that, such a clarity that was revealed to the world as there was at Mount Sinai. What we're trying to do here at the Pesach Seder is not just experience sitting and having nice food. That's critically important. And to be with friends, and to be with family, and to have a good time, and to laugh and enjoy, and drink that fine wine. It's not only about that. How are we going to get to that point of revelation, of clarity, from the slavery we have here? From the slavery to our careers, from the slavery to our jobs, from the slavery from our technology, from our games, from our toys, from our computers, from our cars, from our luxuries, from our homes, from our fashion. How are we going to pull away from that? To bring God, to bring that revelation into our lives. We are slaves indeed. Pesach is the time we can break away from that. Pesach is the time that we can take ourselves out of our own slavery and take ourselves to new heights. And that those new heights don't end after the Seder. Oh, Seder's over, I'm done. No, that's just the beginning. It's the push that now helps us take the 50 steps all the way up. What's 50 days after Pesach, after the Seder? 50 days later, we're sitting again celebrating the receiving of the Torah. The receiving of the Ten Commandments, the revelation at Mount Sinai. That's what we have 50 days later. So it's just the springboard to get us on track to receiving that Torah. There's no way for us to do that if we're still locked up in our slavery. There's no way to attain those levels of greatness when we're slaves. Pesach is the time where we parallel ourselves and we see ourselves as slaves just as our ancestors were. There are many, Sephardic custom, actually take the matzah and they put it over their shoulder as if they were the slaves. And they walk around the table to show it's not just something of the past, it's something of the present. The most celebrated holiday by Jews today is not Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur. It's Pesach. It's the Pesach Seder. And I don't think it's a coincidence, because this is the time to spring into action. It's to spring into a freedom, to spring ourselves into a reality of service of Hashem. So we need to ask all the questions. We need to think of answers. But most importantly, we have to relate to it. And by asking questions, we're relating to it. The more we talk about our redemption from Egypt, do you know why you're praiseworthy? Because you realize how gifted you are. You realize what miracles the Almighty bestowed upon us. We realize how beneficial it was for us to be redeemed. We realize the more we talk about those miracles, the more we see the love that the Almighty has for us, that He did all of these things. It's not that you're praiseworthy, it's that you'll feel the joy. Mishubach means refined. It becomes greater. You know what becomes greater? You become greater because your relationship with God grows. By definition, you grow. Okay. So the more you talk about the redemption, the better. Now, it's very hard to talk about freedom. You know, tonight is a Partners in Torah program, and as was anticipated, which is why we have this class, you know, there are many partners in the other room learning in the regular Partners in Torah schedule. But for many of us here, our partners aren't here. Why not? Because they're preparing, as many of you have, for Pesach. Some are cooking, some are cleaning, some are shopping, some are doing other things. It's a lot of work. It's koshering kitchens. It's koshering pots and pans that are going to be used for Passover. It's cleaning the entire house, every nook and cranny. It's doing a lot of work to get ready for these days, these special days. Many people forget how special it is to start a holiday. We start a holiday with Passover, with the Seder. And we're so tired. And we're so worn out. And we're exhausted. But I think there needs to be a recognition, at least within ourselves. You know what? We're free people. We're free. Now is holiday. Now we don't have that cleaning anymore. Now we don't have that cooking anymore. Now let's just enjoy. It's easier said than done, that's true. But at least by saying it, hopefully we'll remind ourselves to stop for a second, take a deep breath, and enjoy. Enjoy the environment, enjoy the people, enjoy the food, enjoy the camaraderie. Be happy. There's a mitzvah to tell the story. What's the story of the Jewish people? Not only the story of the Jewish people back then, the story of the Jewish people today. The story of the Jewish people, how we are thriving as a people. By the way, not only in Israel are Jews thriving. Not only in technology. Not only with science. But look at the Torah community. Look at how the Torah community is thriving. I don't think there's been a generation where we've had so many tens of thousands of people studying Torah. Someone told me that in the graduating class of boys in Lakewood, New Jersey today, there's almost 1,200 boys graduating, 8th grade. 1,200 boys in one city. Just the boys. That's 2,400. 8th grade is going into 9th grade. Do you know how many there are in 7th grade going to 8th grade? Almost double that. You need to open up new schools every year. The growth of the Torah community is skyrocketing. It's a beautiful thing. We have access today to Torah like almost never before. We're on Facebook, YouTube, iTunes. You can listen to podcasts. You can drive in your car and listen for hours and hours and hours of Rabbi Wolbe, my brother. RabbiWolbe.com. You can listen to his podcast. You can listen to hundreds of hours. We've never had such access before. You had to go. You remember the story with Hillel. Hillel went onto the rooftop because he couldn't afford to go into the study hall. You used to have to go into the study hall to learn. Today you can be at home by your computer and learn. That's the story of the Jewish people. Yes, we were persecuted. Yes, we had pogroms. Yes, we suffered Holocaust. Yes, we had so many attempts for our annihilation. And look at us today. That's also part of the story of the Jewish people. It's also part of the story of Pesach Seder. Perhaps it could spring us to a point where we say, you know what? We're going to take another step in our Judaism, in our commitment, in our learning. We have over a dozen classes going on at the Torch Center every week. And outside of the Torch Center, Torch provides so many Torah classes. And you have many of the local synagogues have classes. You know, Rabbi Yacobian every day has classes. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Shabbos. An amazing congregation. Everyone's welcome. No membership. Today, all over. Torch is going to Humble, to Sugarland, to Katy, to Spring, to Cypress, to Clear Lake, Bel Air, everywhere. To teach Torah. There's access. The Torah doesn't belong to the rabbis. It doesn't belong to the few who are fortunate to be in yeshivas. It belongs to each and every one of you. It belongs to the Jewish people. Morasha Kihilat Yaakov. Torah Tziva Lanu Moshe. The Torah was commanded through Moshe as an inheritance to every single Jew. To the entire congregation of Jews. Not just if you're in yeshiva. Not just if you're a member of a synagogue. Not just if you're at Torch. Every Jew. It belongs to you. That's part of our Pesach story as well. Celebrate that. Take time to sing with your family. If you don't know Pesach songs, you can get on YouTube. Do Pesach songs. You'll learn it while you're cleaning, while you're cooking. Learn some Pesach songs. Sing it with your family at the Seder. I want to read with you the kiddush that we make, that we say on the first cup of wine at the beginning of the Seder. It goes as follows. So we make the blessing on Shabbos, because this year, Friday night is going to be the first Seder. Saturday night is going to be the second Seder. But Friday night, we're going to start with the regular Shabbos Kiddush. And then we say the Borei Pri Hagafen, the blessing on the wine. And then we make a special blessing on the day. Now on Shabbos, we would typically, it would be in the same order, we'd say the day of Shabbos. On holiday, we say the day of this holiday. But on holiday and Shabbos, we combine the two. But listen to the blessing that we say on this holiday. Blessed are you, Hashem, our God, King of the world, King of the universe. Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Amim, who chose us from all the other nations. You know, all the other nations were offered to get this manual of living called the Torah. You want to figure out the mystery of life, what the whole world is running after, how to fulfill ourselves, how to have pleasure, how to have joy, how to raise a healthy family. All those secrets are in the Torah. You want to do that? Guess what? The Torah is the secret. All the nations of the world were offered that. God chose us. We chose God as well. But God chose us. Mikol Amim, from all the other nations. V'romemanu mikol hashon, and elevated us above all languages. V'kidishanu b'mitzvotav, and made us holy with His mitzvahs. It says, Ratzah HaKadosh Baruch Hu Lizakot et Yisrael. God wanted to give us merits. Lefikach, therefore, Hirba lahem Torah u'mitzvot. God gave us many mitzvot in the Torah. God gave us many mitzvahs. You say, why do we need 613 souvenirs? We can just have 5, 10, 20, okay. 613, isn't that quite a bit? It is a bit, that's true. 613, because God loves us and He wants to give us every opportunity. We shouldn't have one moment in our lifetime that isn't maximized with that relationship. Lefikach hirba lahem Torah. It says God gave us a lot, an abundance of Torah and mitzvahs, so that we can, at every opportunity, feel that blessing. V'kidishanu b'mitzvotav, and God made us holy with His mitzvah. V'titei lanu Hashem Elokeinu, and God gave us bi'ahava, with love, Shabbatot v'menucha, Shabbatot, many Shabbatot, to relax and to rest. U'moadim l'simcha, again because it's Shabbos, so we add that. And moadim l'simcha, and great festivals for joy. The whole purpose of Pesach. Sukkot, Shavuot, the 3 festivals. The 3 festivals where there's a mitzvah to have a pilgrimage to Jerusalem, to go up to Jerusalem, to bring an offering. Moadim l'simcha, for great joy. Chagim uzmanim l'sason, holidays and times of celebration. Et Yom HaShabbat hazeh, this Shabbat, vet Yom Chag HaMatzot hazeh, and this holiday of Matzot. Zman cherutenu be'ahava mikra kodesh, a great time of freedom, of redemption, with love. And it's called holy. Zecher Yitziat Mitzrayim, a remembrance for our redemption from Egypt, for our exit from Egypt. Ki banu bacharta, again, the second time we mention this, because you chose us. Ve'otanu kidashta, and you made us holy. Mikol ha'amim, from all the other nations. V'shabbat u'moadei kadshecha, and Shabbat and your holy festivals. Be'ava u'vratzon, with love and with will and with desire. V'simcha u'v'sason inchaltanu, with joy and happiness, with gladness. You've given to us as an inheritance. Baruch atah Hashem, blessed are you Hashem, Mekadesh HaShabbat Yisrael V'Azmanim, who makes us, the Jewish people, our Shabbat and our times and our festivals holy. I ask you, is Passover only about matzah balls? You know, the question I get a lot is sinkers or floaters. You know, it's the whole idea of the food. We get so caught up in it. And it's great to have delicious food. It's a mitzvah to enjoy this holiday. But is that what it's all about? Is it all about the food?
Elijah.
We can get into the details. We had a class already last week about the details of the whole process of the Seder, which is why I didn't get into it now. I just want to share this perspective again. It's a time of great joy. It's a time where we are chosen, where we feel special, where we feel unique in our relationship with God. No, it does not mean that other people of other nations can't have that relationship. It does not mean that. They can have a relationship, not the same. It's different. They have mitzvahs too, by the way. They have 7 laws of Noah, correct. We have a special relationship. God chose us. Pesach is a time for us to choose God. It's a time for us to remove ourselves from our slavery and say, our slavery is to no one else but to the Almighty. So with that, my friends, I want to wish you all a beautiful Pesach. A Pesach that is the way we bless one another is a Chag Kasher V'Sameach. A kosher, a happy, a healthy, and joyous Pesach. One that is complete with all of the goodness that God intended for us to enjoy. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. And have a marvelous Pesach, everybody. Thank you.
Ditto for you. Same to you.